Welcome to Williamsville South High School, Game 5 and the final game of this weekend of the New York State Public High School Athletic Association Football Far West Regionals, the Class AA battle. And for the third year in a row, it will be the Bennett Tigers from Section 6 and the McQuaid Jesuit Knights from Section 5 in a game that we've kind of all been looking forward to this weekend. And it will decide for bragging rights between the two sections who will come out with the most wins. I'm Francis Beck, joined by Tim Chief of Paul Catrona. First thoughts on this game, obviously the headline game of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, for us, Section 6, that's what we represent the most. This is our team. This is our state champion right now. They have been the best team in our area. Arguably, you might want to argue it, if you're St. Francis some years, but as far as we're concerned, Bennett has been the best team in our area.
The last 2 years.
Last 2 years, state championship runner-up, and then state champion last year, and off and running again this year. I think we were talking about it. I think yesterday, Francis, the last time they lost on the field in Western New York, we think was Orchard Park 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. That was on the way to their run to Carmel.
The one they lost.
Yeah, the Carmel.
Yeah. They lost their first game last season out of state, I believe, and then obviously the mess that they ran into towards the end of the season. But special team and the absolute fastest team that I've seen in Western New York, and that might not be arguable.
No, speed on top of speed with a little more speed added into it, right? Can't teach that, and that's how game-changing plays are made by those players that can do what us mere mortals aren't able to do.
And just talent everywhere.
I just love Bennett. I've been a big Bennett booster for a few years. I've mentioned before, my dad is in the Harvard Cup Hall of Fame. Your dad, my dad are in the Lafayette Hall of Fame. Harvard Cup meant a lot, and now with Bennett moving into Section 6, we're just going to keep championing those city schools and push on.
I mean, you have to give credit for what Coach McDuffie is building here. I mean, he is building a powerhouse program that if you are an elite player in the city of Buffalo, you want to go to Bennett now. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and you remember,
you don't have to recruit. Your success is your recruiting. And so I don't want to hear about recruiting or all that garbage. If the rules are you can go where you want, and if you're a good player, where else would you go right now? I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, they are
gorgeous stadium, right? Good facilities.
Yes,
they're like the sun, and the gravitational pull brings players in.
And a chance to get a state championship every year, from now. And you're playing with elite talent. I mean, Division I type talent, and they had, 2 Division I players graduate last year.
And Jameer Thomas has committed already to Syracuse.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Perry is. So there's just it's very unique. And
Tim, one other thing I'd like to say about Coach McDuffie, and it's true of all the coaches that we know. It's not only about football. It's about how to learn to become a good student, how to learn to become a good young man, and then for life after football.
That's such a good point, and we said that about Coach Parker earlier too. And there's several coaches that do that, and I think that gets lost sometimes. And one of the things I get credit for Coach McDuffie about is he's not afraid to surround himself with great talented coaches either. Yeah, he has right. Cliff Scott, who was one of the premier quarterbacks to come out of this area from Grand Island. His brother Anthony Scott was a great player, went to UB also. I mean, he is just loaded from the coaching standpoint, and he's just building this juggernaut of a program that everybody wants to be, but everyone hates playing, and and it's like,
well, you want to be the champ, beat the champ, right?
Exactly. And it's like, it's not like even like this year if you watch them, they're I don't want to say they don't do anything special. That's not what I mean, but it's like they'll just do what the game allows them to do. Like against Lancaster, okay, they played a very basic game. They just they took what the defense was giving them. It was what, a 21-7 game, something like that.
20-7.
20-7. So they just, they don't turn the ball over. They're aggressive defensively, but they will just, Coach McDuff, he doesn't try to, do too much. I guess what I'm trying to say. He just wants to win the game. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what he wins by. He just wants to win and move on now at this point. And it's just really special to watch. It's really cool to have a team this elite in our area.
Tim, you mentioned that 20-7 game they beat Lancaster. That was the closest game they played all season. And before that, their closest game was a 3-touchdown win over Lockport. The one thing that I think, if you're a Bennett fan, you may be a little concerned for is that you haven't faced any adversity. Last year, they went to McDowell the first game of the season, faced a powerhouse, lost in overtime. And then I think in week 3 or 4, they went down to Ohio, and they lost to an Austintown Finch team by a team that, is known very well in Ohio. And so they at least faced some adversity. They really haven't faced some adversity this year, the Bennett Tigers. Does that concern you a little bit?
Yes, it does. I almost say it every broadcast, to be honest, about adversity. But there also is that time, once in a while, that the team is just that good, and they won't ever face adversity.
Well, and don't forget last week, 2 goal line stands.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that game's a little different, right?
I don't know if maybe adversity might be the right word for this team, but I would like, if they get down, how do they adjust? How do they react if they're down? Because their game plan obviously is jump on you fast, play good defense, and just pound it out the rest of the game.
And that brings us to McQuaid, right?
Last year, McQuaid
they can do this.
Right. McQuaid last year jumped to a 14-0 lead. Okay, if that happens this year, does Bennett have the same horses that they had last year to come back and win? I think it was 21-14. Last year. They were down 14-0 at halftime this game, right?
Yep.
They came back and they won 21-14, I believe. But they had Division I linemen. They had the Connolly Cup winner. If that happens today, do they have the same, the same type of players that could adjust being down that type of game?
Well, one good thing is they don't have the exact same players, but they've had young men that have been in their program for a few years that we're able to watch those players.
Yeah.
And they're similarly gifted younger players, but
well, and
you never know until you put in that
Jameer
situation.
Thomas quite a bit like they used
Jaden Lewis.
Jaden Lewis, he would play receiver, and he'd have 110 yards. The next week, he'd play running back, he'd have 150 yards rushing. And that's kind of what they're doing with Jameer Thomas. Now, I was talking to a couple coaches from Bennett. He is a little banged up, okay? I don't know if that's a concern or not, but he didn't practice the entire, or he's very limited in practice, I guess. So he did get hurt in the Lancaster game. I don't think he came back.
He did come back.
He did come back.
He did have some couple carries.
Okay, so either way, he's probably not 100%, right? So who else is going to step up for you? You have talent all over. Is it going to be, someone like a Kamir Cook or Ryan Lawrence, or obviously the quarterback? You have senior or junior quarterback, Sherrod Bernard, who's had a great year, 1,350 yards, 13 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. But if your number one horse is banged up, it's, I hate to say it again, but it's the next man up mentality.
Always that way in football, right?
Right, and I would think if anybody has the talent around, it would be the Tigers.
And I think that next man up, which we kind of saw in that game last week, is Ryan Lawrence. He kind of jumped out in those first games. I saw them in their Week 2 game against McKinley, and he had a couple interceptions. He was making plays down the field. I got to be honest, when I saw him wearing 7, I thought it was Lewis a little. I thought it was Lewis. He kind of reminded me of him. And he stepped up, I know, in that game when Jameer was out taking some more carries.
And Lawrence, to your point, Francis, he put that team on his back, I think, last week, and really, really stepped up and played a magnificent game.
And on the other side, McQuaid also starting a junior quarterback. Will DeMarco had another good season, almost 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, also 3 touchdowns. But he has his work cut out for him.
And I think
these defensive backs for Bennett are as good as anyone I've seen. You have McDuffie playing safety. I think he's got 8 or 9 interceptions. Obviously, the kid that transferred and came back, I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, Damari Clemens is still there.
So
They have a couple kids with the interceptions on Bennett.
They are, and what they force you to do is because they jump on you and they get leads, they force teams to have to throw, and that's what.
And they're aggressive, right?
Yeah, and when you're forced to throw against this kind of athletes, good luck. Good luck. They're that good, and that's part of the beauty of what Coach McDuffie does.
And what I love about this game, these are the giants, right? From both sections. 11-0 McQuaid.
Oh, it's become a rivalry.
10-0 from Bennett.
It's built its own rivalry, the same that it has with Bennett and Lancaster, just because, it's not the typical TNT, Kemmer West, Kemmer East, because of, where you live. It's just because these are the elite programs.
These are the excellent programs
exactly.
of these two
and
areas.
Bennett, they've owned him. They've owned Lancaster. They've owned McQuaid. So everybody wants a shot at Bennett. And what did you say? To beat the man, you got to beat the man. Or to be the man, you got to beat the man, right?
Yeah.
Ric Flair
you want to be the
something?
champ.
Right.
You want to be the champ, beat the champ. Words mean nothing when you get out between these lines.
And the loss to Carmel 2 years ago, that had to light this fire. Not just with Coach McDuffie, but the players that returned. You saw it with Perry, and then they got the taste of a state championship. You're going to tell me these kids don't want that again?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You know that Carmel game? I still think Bennett was the better team. Just needed a little more experience, a little more salt and pepper.
Well, and they needed to start throwing the football better.
Yes.
Which is why they got Antonio Davis last year, and this year it's Shenard Bernard III.
And Antonio Davis last year was kind of an unsung hero.
Yeah.
Because he was, I don't want to say overshadowed, but he was overshadowed, But he had a great season, and he could throw the ball.
That was kind of, that was the one thing that Coach McDuffie talked to us about before last year, is that they realized they needed to start throwing the football. They were one-dimensional, and once Carmel figured out we just need to stop the run, they did that. So I
remember beginning of the season, Cliff Scott, who's kind of the offensive coach, and he's the quarterback coach, and he said, we can throw if we have to, especially when they got him. But, quarterback this year for Bennett, we talked about he's a junior, so first-year starter.
Very efficient.
Sherrard Bennett, very efficient, 1,350 yards. And, again, this is a team that has been up every single game. So when you are up every single game, you do not throw the ball quite a bit in the second half. It just doesn't happen, especially going into the fourth quarter. So that's a very good season when you have literally dominated every single game. The only team that even looked – obviously last week was a close game, but – all the way back to the Lockport game. That was the only game that it looked like, they could stay on the field with them.
It wasn't the varsity versus the JV in those 2 games.
And it's truly a speed thing with Bennett. They are so fast, and you can't prepare for that. I don't care how much tape you watch, but when you are playing, you're setting your defense, and you want your scout team offense to run. It's not the same. It's night and day. You just can't prepare for it. It's tough. You got to be so disciplined. And if they get to the corner and you miss, you're going to look stupid. They're going to go a long way. It's just like you can't.
Well, they're running for downtown in that situation, right?
Yeah.
They're not waiting for any bus.
The one that had the interception return for a touchdown in the state championship game, you were in like a 4.240.
Was that Jameer?
Was it Jameer?
I know. And there were a couple turnovers. Jameer was the one that picked up the fumble where
and
he was
like
deep in the end.
20 yards ahead of everybody else.
That's what we use usually for our intro videos.
Yeah, okay.
And Tim had to cut it up to make sure it fit in.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, if you're a fan of football, and again, we're only talking a little bit about McQuaid because we truly just know it on paper. We mostly do Section 6. We're not trying to hide behind that. And Bennett is our the team that we followed all the way last year.
Well,
they're the only team that went to Syracuse from Section 6. So we truly were there for them.
One thing we keep in mind too, I want to mention McQuaid has a kicker.
Yeah, right? I was just about to go there.
So special teams can come in and play a big role.
You're dying for it to come into play.
Well, so Sansone, Dominic Sansone, senior kicker, punter, his extra points, 43 for 43.
That's not bad.
That's
and
not
7
bad,
for 7
right?
field goals, too.
And 7 for 7 for field goals. So he's created those, 43 and 21, which is 64 points.
Yeah, good math real quick,
But-
too. Good job.
But those things can come in very,
Sure.
very handy.
It
in
is
a close
gusty out
game.
there. If you look at the flags, they are moving, so you can't go too far, I don't think. But I'll be honest with you guys, you're not going to beat Bennett with field goals. You got to score touchdowns.
But can you beat him with extra points if you
extra points?
Bennett
Yeah,
missed,
right.
especially
turning
Bennett
6
misses.
into 7, yes, but just getting 3, not going to be enough.
No,
It's
but
just
if you go
not.
touchdown for touchdown, it forces Bennett to at least do
And
a
I think Bennett goes for
50-50.
2 every time, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
a
they go for
50-50.
2.
Yep.
Although personally, I love going for. I think NFL teams should go for 2 all the
I
time.
agree.
But it's
All you have to do is
chancy,
51%, right? That's all you got to be.
If you hit 51%, you're a little
Points
bit ahead.
point score, just so you guys know, Bennett is 43 a game, very similar. At McQuaid's 36 points against, Bennett 8, and then 14 for McQuaid. So on paper, these guys are very similar. 151 passing yards a game for Bennett, 129 for McQuaid. They both run the ball a lot, 284 yards a game. That's not a typo. 284 yards a game for Bennett. And 225 for McQuaid. So
Not bad, right?
yeah, I mean
They're both
just
big physical teams.
exactly, and they both average more than 1 takeaway a game, almost 3 takeaways away a game for Bennett. And a lot of that is because they're up so much and teams have to throw. So you are watching 2 elite teams that I am sure have had this game circled for quite some time, especially McQuaid. You want to get back at the ones that knocked you out.
All right, that will do it for us. We'll be back at halftime. You can go watch the game right now on the NFHS Network. But for Paul Catrone and Tim Chifa, I'm Francis Beck. That'll do it for the pregame show. We'll see you at half.
What does it mean when people say America is a land of opportunity?
It means the power to discover,
To redefine yourself.
To improve yourself
to challenge yourself.
To realize there's more in you
than you ever knew.
that you could do.
Means giving people an open field to explore what they do best.
With the best tools,
The best training,
the best technology in the world.
We bring out the best in the people who serve.
So you can be
all you can be.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics.
Or an efficient personal approach for all of your transportation needs. More information about our Buffalo office is available at logisticsplus.com/Buffalo.